Ontario is reintroducing capacity limits of 50% for most indoor settings as COVID cases, they soar in this province. The restrictions go into effect at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday for all bars, restaurants, personal care services, shopping malls, retailers, and gyms. Half the people inside means half the revenue for these business owners who have been struggling with limitations and restrictions for more than 20 months now.
Even more frustrating for many is the fact that these restrictions were announced without any talk of financial support for these impacted industries. Joining us live tonight to discuss these challenges is Ryan Mallough from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, John Sinopoli, partner and executive chef at Ascari Hospitality Group, and Marina Imperio, owner of groundbreaking 9 Round Kickboxing Fitness. Ryan, to you first, what's your reaction to today's announcement? Is the province making the right move when it comes to these new rules?
I think it's mostly just the worst version of Groundhog Day. I mean, here we are again, late Friday afternoon, 32 hours notice for a change that is going to be life-altering for some businesses, with once again no financial support that's there. So it's an incredibly difficult announcement at a difficult time of year after a difficult 20 months.
I know, Ryan, the CFIB lobbies the government. What kind of lobbying went on behind the scenes, especially when it comes to announcing supports? Because Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy said, we will have supports coming. They'll be targeted and they'll be industry specific. We'll have more to say on that later. But these business owners, two of whom we have on the show right now, they're going to be struggling.
Yeah, and we've been very clear since September. We were starting to see amongst our membership that there was some concern that we were going to find ourselves in yet another lockdown situation. And we told the government there has to be a plan. There has to be a stay open plan in place. And should we find ourselves in this situation again, the announcement cannot come without support. So while it's encouraging that the finance minister and the premier are looking for support, that it's not there when they make the announcement is frankly quite troubling. And the amount of time it's going to take to get something sorted out may be too long for a lot of businesses who are going to need it immediately.
And John, I know restaurants have struggled really so much since the start of the pandemic. What does this mean for your hospitality group? Will you have to lay any employees off at this point?
Yeah, thanks for having me. 100%, we're going to have to lay people off, but with the restrictions starting on Sunday, our business, we've already seen a huge decline in the past 3 or 4 days. It's rampant amongst the industry. We told federal government back in September that it was crucial that they continue the subsidy programs they had in place. They removed them, replaced them with a subsidy program that restaurants don't qualify for. And now we're back where we thought we were going to be, except it's way worse than we imagined. And the federal and provincial governments need to step up with support immediately, or we're going to see a mass failure.
Marina, this impacts the little guy the most. Your business, gym, hit incredibly hard. I think you only got to open, it's been a few months now since you've actually had people back inside your establishment. What does today's announcement mean to you?
It just means that, once again, small businesses within my industry and others are hit the hardest. The capacity limits aren't the problem for me. It's the perception given that I'm not a safe place to be in. I've had 0 cases since the pandemic started. We here can control capacity. We can control distancing. We sanitize all of our equipment after each use, and we can contact trace. So I'm not sure why my little studio has to go back to 50% capacity when I did not, I'm not part of the problem.
How many people, Marina, out of curiosity, do you typically have in a class at your studio?
At the most, we have 9.
So now you're going down to what, 4, 5?
4 or 5. And we can't service all of our members. So what's going to happen to the ones that can't get in here when they need to come in, not just for their physical health, but their mental health as well?
How do you pay your rent on 4 or 5 patrons per class?
I can't. Our subsidies ended in October, and in 10 days I have to come up with rent for January, and I don't have it. And I don't know where I'm going to get it from without support from the government.
John,
Christine
I know.
Elliott, Christine Elliott has said that they're putting these measures in place so they can prevent hospitals from being overrun. But what I want to know is, what are they going to do to prevent businesses from going bankrupt? Because that's the road we're on if we don't get immediate support.
Yeah, and on top of that, Marina, I know in terms of timeline here, nobody had a lot of time to deal with all this on top of everything else. John, for you, do you feel your industry has been given enough time to react to all of this?
Yeah, the reaction time is the least of our worries, to be honest. No, of course, but what else were they going to do? I think the biggest problem is what Marina said, is we're now painted as being unsafe again. We've proven time and time again we are not the source of community contagion in the pandemic. And the restaurant industry in the country deserves a much better lot than we've been given. And governments need to start treating us with the respect we deserve for mature, responsible businesses that take the health and safety of our clients and our staff very, very seriously. And I think that small business is bearing the brunt. Large business gets all the breaks. Ford has been no different than the federal government in that regard. And it just shows they make these announcements without a support program in place. They talk about future support. We have no idea what that's going to be or whether it's going to keep us solvent. And we have rent to pay. We have employees to pay next Friday. And we just lost a full week of revenue.
On the busiest, arguably busiest week or two of
Right.
the year. And never mind, you can't have New Year's celebrations anymore.
Exactly.
I know rent isn't cheap, John, on King West and Queen East, where two
You
of your
got it.
restaurants are located. Yesterday I spoke to one of your colleagues in the restaurant industry. She actually made the decision earlier this week to shut down her restaurant. She told me she saw the writing on the wall. She wanted to make sure her staff was safe. Is that something that I guess ever crossed your mind, or is it just something that wasn't feasible?
Both, yeah, crossed our mind. Not really feasible. We take the consensus from our team on a daily basis. If our teams decide they don't feel like it's a safe place, we will listen. We don't manage from the top down in that way at all. But at the end of the day, they need to pay their rent. We need to pay our rent, or we need to put food on the table. It's been an incredibly tough year. Christmas is around the corner, and like you said, this week and next week are supposed to be the busiest weeks of the year, where we make a little bit of money to bank for the kind of really difficult January, February coming our way. And now we're basically come up against a brick wall. So the federal government needs to reinstate the subsidies that existed a year ago. Not even the subsidy that existed last October, because they changed the calculator and everyone was getting a lot less money. We need proper support. It needs to be industry specific. Big corporations like Rogers and TELUS don't need to participate in these subsidies. Spend the money on small business where we don't have shareholders, we're owners with mortgages.
Yeah, Ryan, exactly what John had been talking about there. I wanted to ask you, what do you expect in terms of support? What do you hope for in terms of support from the federal government? And can the CFIB do more in terms of lobbying to get more support?
So I think that we'd like to see exactly what was stated, the feds to reinstate the rent subsidy and wage subsidy programs to their previous levels. And especially in recognition that, there's a lot of things federally that trigger for lockdown support, but businesses aren't being locked down. They are being kept open. We know our members in Ontario, a third of them say they're bleeding money every day they're open because customers aren't coming in because of the fear that is being perpetuated by announcements like this. I think it's an important thing to remember, too. They didn't close businesses down. They are still open. And I think a lot of business owners are very worried that people aren't going to come based on the tone that was given today. So I think federally reinstating the rent and wage subsidies at their full pandemic levels is important. Provincially, too, though, I think the government needs to bring back the support grant. And it's important that it's a grant, not a loan, to make sure that businesses have what they need to get through this.
So Marina, the measures Ryan's talking about, would that be enough to save your business? Would that help you make January rent?
Yes, for sure. But like that gentleman said, that they need to increase that support. What we were getting in August, September, October wasn't enough to cover any of our operating costs. We may be open, but our operating costs have also increased and our revenue hasn't. So they need to take that into consideration. They also need to take into consideration our industries that have been hit the hardest, like the restaurants and the gyms. The grants definitely need to come back. Yeah, that will help in the interim, but in the long term, we're still in for a very long recovery.
Marina, we're obviously hoping, all three of you, that things turn around quickly. I know, given the circumstances, we just don't know at this point what comes next. Thank you, though. Ryan Mallough from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, John Sinopoli, partner and executive chef at Ascari Hospitality Group, and Marina Imperio, owner of 9 Round Kickboxing Fitness. Thank you to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.